Hello and welcome back to Redirecting. I want you to take a look at the image on the screen here. Now this is an image that was shared on Facebook, and for those who commented on this image, it was very clear to us what was happening. Very clear. This environment that you see portrayed in this image is actually what takes place on a daily basis nationwide. Now, our children are subjected to this type of environment where it's very clear that they are pushed off to the side. They are an afterthought, and that there is no real focus or attention being paid to integrating them into the classroom, much less into society. And so when you put your child in an environment, that child knows what's going on. They may not talk about it openly or at all, but they know. Their mind is smart enough to know what's taking place and what is happening, that they are kind of like off in the shadows and the other children are at the forefront. All the attention is being paid to them. We've heard many testimonies or many stories to where Black children felt like they were being looked over, treated differently, told to go into another field of profession because being a doctor or a lawyer or anything of importance was just too good for them. And so they've been told to, why don't you try to be a janitor, or maybe try to be something else, or anything that would just keep them as a second class or underclass citizen. And so one thing we've got to understand is when you put your children into an environment such as this, you are actually participating in whatever they become. Now, I'm not saying this to insult anyone. I'm not saying this to make anyone feel bad, because at one time my children were in public school as well. But we kind of woke up and realized that we were doing a disservice to them, especially with our older children. When we lived back in Michigan, they were in public school. There were things happening. My son, Elia, was abused in public school. There was a child who stabbed him in his hand. And I shared the testimony before, and that child did not get in trouble. Now, it was a Caucasian child. That child did not get in trouble. And the case of one of my oldest daughters, they were kicked in the stomach by a young man. And usually, if you are the victim of something, they don't punish you too. In this case, they made both children stay after school, and we had to go and pick them up versus sending them home on the bus. Now, here was our situation at that time. We lived out in the country where there were no bus lines, no taxi service or anything like that. So what if I was a parent who didn't have transportation and I lived out in the country and I depended on the school bus to bring my child home? If we didn't have a vehicle, I would have been up the creek without a paddle, because this school was in another city far away from where we lived. But did they care about that? No, they did not. They never take into consideration what your situation is before they do things to you. Now, thankfully, I had transportation and I was able to drive and go get my child. But when we get there and we hear the story of what happened, it was simply said to us that he kicked her in the stomach. And so we held both of them back so that the parents can come and retrieve them. So it's never fair with how they deal with our children. So we decided, okay, we'll take them out of the public school and we put them in private Christian schools. Now, this is just our two oldest children. One was going to a Catholic school, and our son Elia, he was going to, I guess you would call it Baptist or evangelical or whatever, but it was a white school. And so we had our ignorant moments too. We thought that that would be better. And in both cases, it was not. Now, my daughter, she wasn't abused in the Christian school, but they were pushing that whole pray to Mary thing on her, talking about Mary deserves some type of recognition as well. And so they had the little prayer where they would have to pray to Mary, and my daughter declined to do so, and she got in trouble for it. And they called us to the school to have a meeting with us because she would not put her hand wherever or lift it up or whatever and say, Hail Mary, full of grace. Now with our son Elijah, he was abused in this white Christian school. And the way they dealt with it, one kid kicked his chair out from under him and he injured his tailbone. That's how hard the chair was kicked out from under him. And the floors were made of concrete. And so what they did, the child didn't get in trouble. What they did was made our son sit out and put his head down on the table. Now, the next thing that happened to him, he came home, his arm was so messed up because he was running on the pavement out in the parking lot where they had the children playing, and another kid made him fall, pushed him while he was running. And so he injured his arm so badly, was bruised all up and bloody. And again, he was made to sit down and put his head down. So we said, you know what, enough is enough. We have got to homeschool our children because this system will allow them to be abused and miseducated all in one whop. And we are ignorant if we continue to allow this. And so when I look at the image that I showed you earlier in this video, and I say to myself, what are we doing to our children? Many of our children come home with stories of what is happening in these schools. And as parents, we should be protectors. Why are we justifying sending them there because we feel that they need an education? First of all, the whole idea that we need people who hate us to educate our children is ridiculous. Malcolm X said only a fool would send his children to his enemies to be taught. That is a powerful and true statement. What are we doing? We talk about all of this other stuff about how movies are programming and this is happening and how the music is doing this, that, and the other. What do you think the school system is doing? That's programming them too. That is touching them on a level that's even beyond you, because during the school year, they spend more time with your children than you do. And yet we talk about all of these other agendas, but we can't see this one with the most precious part of us, our children. We stick them in these schools and we think that we're doing something good. We think that they're being educated. Especially those who live in a white neighborhood. We say, oh, my children are going to the best schools. Why is that? Because your children speak like what they call white? Because they sound articulate? Articulate doesn't equate to smart or intelligent, because American schools are failing across the board. And so this whole idea of putting our children into an environment that we feel is better for them because we think they're learning. But yet you see an image like this surface. And I've seen many other images of worksheets that were clearly very racist and biased, making it seem like the worksheet itself made it seem as if the white children were smarter and the black children were sad or miserable in some kind of way. It was actually built into the worksheet. But yet we don't see the agenda with the most precious part of us. We've got to get it together mentally because our focus is shifted in the wrong place. We focus on so much nonsense while our children are falling through the cracks. And it seems like we're none the wiser, not knowing what is going on. We just blindly follow a system that is not here to help, but is here to break away and chip away at their self-esteem, brick by brick. What are we going to do about it? Are we going to keep complaining about it? Or are we going to take the lives of our children into our own hands, giving them a better chance at success by making sure that they are properly educated? Because if you think a system that has participated in the miseducation of the Negro, if you think that they have your children's best interest at heart, you are sadly mistaken. We're talking about descendants of those who would kill you for even reading a book during slavery. It was against American law for a slave to read a book. What does that tell you? And what does that tell you about us? With us knowing this, many of us know this, but will still put our children into this system as if we think or believe there is a goal to educate them truly. It is sad indeed when we just keep going more and more backwards, going deeper into this mind control, going further into this deception, as if we think we're headed in the right direction. We are most miserable as a people as long as we remain complicit with what is happening to our children, putting them into a toxic environment that is not meant to educate them or nurture them or love them or point them in the right direction. That is not what it's meant for. It is meant to dumb them down, belittle them, make them think that they're dumb and stupid and that they don't have a chance in life, that they shouldn't even fight for anything, that they shouldn't have any goals, that they're incapable of learning. Should I continue? That is the system that we are putting them in, forcing our children into a system that is built for them to fail. Think about what I am saying. Think about your children. And for me, yes, this is a matter of love. And this is a matter of top priority. And I do know and understand that it seems difficult and impossible at times. But when we look at what's at stake, how much are we willing to give up as a people, as a group, to educate our own? And yes, that does involve group economics. It does involve unity. It does involve cohesion. And so those are some of the worst places or areas that we have right now, because as a group, we do not work together. There is no cohesion in mass. Maybe in smaller groups, but in mass, it just doesn't exist. And so when I talk about problems or issues such as this, we don't see it as a solution. We don't see any solution because we don't see any active groups that we can participate in that cares enough about all of our situations to put aside pettiness to try to make this thing work for us and our children. We are just not seeing it. And so we all feel just kind of hopeless, alone, out here by ourselves. That's how many people feel, because you try to look across town or in your community, in your area, in your city, in your state, in your region, and most of us can't come up with one person that you can even trust enough to do what I'm talking about. Group economics, looking after each other, helping each other's children, educating each other's children, educating and helping one another, working together, growing food together, building businesses together, building communities together. Most of us can't even think of one person in our communities in close proximity that we can achieve such a thing with. And even those who you think you can do it with that may live somewhere else, it's like the way is not even made for that. It's not even open for that. We are not even together enough for that. And so right now it seems like we are in between a rock and a hard place. And I know that doesn't sound too promising. I'm just stating the facts right now. And the fact is, we as a people need to get it together mentally, because we shouldn't be in this place. Anytime we can look at these other nations and they are able to achieve things, even if they don't like each other, they look out for the greater good of their own people. When we look at this, instead of us being upset at them, we should be trying to figure out how we can fix our hearts, souls, and minds so that we can achieve the same things. Because complaining about what they're doing is not going to help a thing. Talking about the curses and what they're doing to us, the stumbling blocks, the hurdles, the ditches that have been dug, talking about those things without exploring solutions will get us nowhere. It will only further frustrate us because we're looking at what they have. And of course, the Bible says that he was going to use these other nations to provoke us unto jealousy. But it should also provoke us unto work, putting in the work, doing what we have to on our own selves first, fixing us so that we can collectively come together. And it's not just words. You can't just come together with words and say, oh, I have a like mind with yours. It's more to it than words. You have to put those words into action. And action doesn't mean trying to skate in on somebody else's hard work. That's not actions. Actions mean you're going to prove yourself, that you are trustworthy, that you're ready to work and do whatever it is you have to do so that we collectively can get up out of this low state that we are in. But again, that is a tall order, family. But just think back on the picture that I shared with you. Look at those children. As I saw those children, a couple of them looking back and the two that were on the other side looking forward, they seemed like they were just so lost in that space with all of those other children. And they were just pushed off to the side like they were nothing, almost like discarded. That image really deeply saddened me. Tell me your thoughts in the comment section. What did that image bring to your mind? Okay? With that, family, I will say shalom. Be sure to ring the bell to be notified of new uploads on this channel, and also comment, share, like, and subscribe.